Detective Comics 1062, Ram V writing, Raphael Albuquerque on the art. So this is the start of the new run on Detective.
Yep.
We got a lot of new concepts kind of introduced here, some new characters. Well, as far as I know, they're new characters. I don't recognize any of these new people. We've got a new tone, we've got new sort of plot threads being established and things like that. And obviously Ram V is someone we've liked on other books recently, so super excited to see how it would shape up. So yeah, I mean, first things first, Albuquerque's art is exceptional. I mean, there's really...
Ram V's one of these writers that gets all the great artists, right? And it's Tom King, Ram V, Tom Taylor.
Yeah,
so...
I mean, the whole thing opens in like an opera or theater production and there's this giant bat and there's an empty chair that's reserved for Bruce Wayne, but he's not there, of course.
I'll be honest, I got a little worried when they started talking about pearls. Got a little, and then I was like, oh, it's the opera. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the opera.
And then the bat creature comes up behind her. Like, okay, I know what's going on here.
Well, yeah, I mean, later on, Batman has a dream about this bat creature, and like the word Barbatos is thrown around again. We've not heard that in a little bit.
No.
So...
But I trust. See, and this is one of those things that if it was another writer, I would get a little bit like, oh, we're running this back. But Ram V's built a trust that when you come up with these larger concepts that have an overarching theme, I trust him to stick the landing. You know? So I saw Barbatos, and at first I was like, oh, that was another thing. It's like seeing the Pearl, going like, I thought we were done with Barbatos. But I think if he starts to tie this into the legacy of Batman and what all this means in an operatic sense.
I love how you say it. You say it as if you're talking about someone named Barbara Toes.
No, Barbatos.
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 I'm going to say it wrong now because you're trying to correct me.
I don't know if I'm right. That's just how I'm reading that. I don't know if that's technically right. But anyway, so yeah, Batman, we cut to him dealing with some thugs who are robbing or smuggling some items. And he ends up fighting with someone who looks like Bruno Maroney, but turns out to actually be some kind of shape-shifting monster.
Like a golem type, like...
Yeah, he's oozing green from his mouth, he's got red eyes, the whole thing.
Kind of like... Not like a zombie, but kind of zombie features, right? Like...
So... He's actually in a bit of trouble, and then there's a bolt goes through the thing's head, and it's Talia from a distance, and Batman chases after her, says, "You don't kill things in my city," and she's like, "I thought it was only humans, and that thing is not human." And then, the monster pops up again. He's not dead. Like, that didn't kill him. So, yeah, but she's like, "No, I'm here to warn you, Bruce. They're coming, and you're not prepared." So it's like setting up the whatever the threat's going to be.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, one of the things here, though, is that Bruce is feeling a little bit sluggish, and he's concerned that maybe there's something wrong with him because he's not operating at full capacity. So he starts doing a lot of tests in his lab to sort of just give himself a physical, see how he is. And he calls Dick, and he's asking him about the various things. But Dick's like, "Hey, why are you doing all these tests? Is something wrong?" He's like, "Yeah, I was 3 seconds off tonight. Something's not quite right. I'm just making sure I'm plugging any holes that need to be filled." And Dick's just like, "Are you sure you're not just starting to get a little old, Bruce? Like, maybe that's all this is."
And Bruce took that personally.
He did, yes.
Yeah.
So he starts talking about the artifacts that these guys were smuggling, and one of them is this cube. And immediately I was getting like Hellraiser vibes, and then Bruce looked at it and started saying, "Oh, there's like a mechanism inside." I'm like, "It's the goddamn lament configuration, Bruce. Do not touch it."
So I've never seen these, but I thought the same thing. I know the puzzle box, right? Like, I was like, oh no, Ram V, what are you doing? And there's a bat creature, and you're not ready for them. I was like, oh no, we are getting Cenobite stuff here.
Cenobites, Matt.
Cenobites.
Cenobites.
I haven't seen the movie. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm going to pronounce it how I pronounce it. But yeah, no. I like seeing Dick Grayson pop up. Like, it's great to see Nightwing. Like, I love when Detective has it's not just Bruce, right? Like, it feels like there's not just a larger cast, but it ties Bruce to people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because even when it was Talia and you just see the arrow go through, I was thinking it was Huntress because she's had a pretty big part in Tech. during Tamaki's run. So I was thinking, oh, maybe it's her, and the fact that it was a Maroni, but it being Talia was a nice surprise too.
Yeah, Ram V
So,
strikes me as a writer who appreciates the family and like the the wider set of characters. Bruce can't figure out where these artifacts came from. Like they seem old and valuable, but he can't quite. They're not from Egypt. They're not from anywhere else that one might assume an artifact would be from. And then we cut to these new characters in the Orgum Palace in Zvastral, and we're introduced to this character, Arzin, along with his mother, and his mother's sending him to Gotham, and his brother is already in Gotham preparing for their arrival. But he's bringing his two cronies, which is this guy with a big classical kind of beard and this woman.
yeah.
So obviously they feel very villainous, and this is clearly setting up who these new villains are going to be. And then we see Mr. Gale, who's the brother, and he like wipes out this set of gangsters who were the ones having their men like import these artifacts for them, and because they failed and because Batman took them, Gale and his men kill all of them, and some of them they've got like, cloaks on and they've got knives, so they look kind of like, I think, Ghostface without the Ghostface mask. Like
yeah,
druids.
very cultish.
Yeah. So we're getting kind of like a cult horror type of villain coming after Gotham, and they want to save Gotham from itself, which is, I mean, that part of it's not very original. Like lots of villains.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that Talia knows, like, she's kind of familiar with this group, and she was trying to warn Bruce without stopping them. I think that's key too, right? Because that's very trying to save Gotham from itself is very Ra's al Ghul.
So. Yeah, I don't think it's completely original, but I do think that they have some interesting vibes and looks so far. So I'm curious to see, where the story goes with them. And then we get Bruce having his nightmare where Barbatos' arm comes out of his chest, and then it holds him. It's this gorgeous like red page of Barbatos holding Bruce, all kind of vulnerable, and talking about Barbatos, being in the dark and listen to the bell that tolls my name, blah blah blah. Spooky shit.
Who would have thought that Albuquerque's so good at drawing bat creatures?
Oh yeah, shocked. Could have predicted that a million years. And then he wakes up to the sound of music, and not the movie, the sound of music, just the literal sound of music.
He's trying to figure out that Maria problem.
Yeah, and it turns out the box is a music box, and there's like music playing out of it, and that's the cliffhanger for the main story. And all I'm thinking is like, at some point, Pinhead's going to pop out. The box, you opened it. We came. Yeah. So, I do not expect this will be the last time I make some Hellraiser jokes in relation to this plot. As long as this box keeps popping up.
Yeah, there's also with the cultists and kind of that whole thing. There's also some Lovecraft vibe going on, and I don't know if that's just because I just watched Mouth of Madness a couple weeks ago, and just this whole idea of Bruce not feeling 100%, right? Like he's feeling a bit off. It just feels like not necessarily a madness, right? But just like he's not himself. And he's key to that. But yeah, I wouldn't pass it Ram V of doing something along those lines with some cosmic-y horror, because like what is Barbatos? Barbatos. I'm gonna try to stress the bat in his name. Being a giant bat monster. But a cosmic horror concept, right?
Yeah, I like the whole idea of the opera and stuff, like that was something Connor was salivating over. It's not something that necessarily appeals to me at face value, but I will say that this first issue has a lot of good like atmosphere and a lot of good sort of vibes, like being in the city at night, these types of locations, these types of characters with the murders and like the cultists. Like there's definitely some nice vibes to this that I kind of appreciate, and I wasn't really doubting that because Ram V's been really scratched that itch typically in most of his books that he's done so far for me. So
yeah, I've yet to read a book where with Ram V I was like, nope, I didn't connect to this. Like even if it's something like with the opera, I don't understand opera whatsoever, right? But the fact that it's Ram V doing a Gotham opera, as it was kind of put in the solicits, that's something I'm curious about. And then just here with him with Bruce at the start not feeling right, just from there, it's off and running. But yeah.
And then the backup's a Gordon story. This is kind of like he's back in Gotham and he's struggling with being useless because he's kind of retired now. He doesn't really, he wants to be active. And lo and behold, this corrupt cop shows up with a prostitute, and is basically throws her at him. And it turns out that the reason why he's done this is because this was a cop that Gordon tried to put away a long time ago for his corruption. And this prostitute, her sons went missing, and she tried to go to the police for help. And because she kept showing up, they're just sort of, shooing her off to Gordon. So, he can help her, kind of thing. He's a do-gooder. We don't care. And it's this idea that it gives Gordon some purpose again, so he has something to care about and be Gordon, go and help people. So sure enough, he starts investigating, and it leads him to Arkham, where a lot of junkies and homeless people are using now because it's been left abandoned ever since.
Yeah, the remnants of it. Also, did you talk about in the main story that the people that are coming for Gotham are also they're claiming the Arkham name?
Oh, I didn't mention that. No, you're right.
Yeah, so that's how I figure this is tying in. Is they're coming back to put the to restore the name of Arkham in Gotham and to save Gotham from itself. So the fact that Gordon ends up in this, the remnants of Arkham Asylum, which has become, a haven for junkies and lost souls.
Yeah.
They have to be tied together, at least I think.
Yeah. Eduardo Arkham is the name that's on the scroll they've got when they're talking. Yeah. In the main story. This is the sort of thing where this was a new backup, so I was like, oh, am I going to read this? And I was like, oh, it's a Gordon story, let me read it. So this is Simon Spurrier and Danny on art for this story. And the end of the story is that when Gordon ends up finding a bunch of dead bodies, he follows the tracks of whoever might have done it, and it seems that he finds this woman's son, but the woman's son is naked and might be the one who killed them all. So it's kind of like, it's like, oh, like, we're in, to use you just mentioned Mouth of Madness. It feels like he's in the Mouth of Madness. For lack of a better term. So, because he's eating a rat, so he's a bit unhinged. He's got like a big tattoo. I mean, on his back.
To be fair, he did go to Arkham. That's where people like that end up. So,
no, but he didn't run. He didn't go there as a patient. No, he went there after it was already abandoned.
But he still knew to go there. My big problem with this story was I do like the art. Danny's art, it sticks out. It's their art when he's. The dialogue was so weird for Gordon because I know Gordon's a retired detective, but this felt like pulpy kind of wannabe Sam Spade, and that's not Gordon to me, right? Like, he's not that person that when he thinks like a hard-boiled detective. So, but I know that's what Cy Spurrier was going for. I just don't think it landed.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I guess I just accepted it as like, oh, this is kind of what he's becoming now that he's not on the force anymore and he's alone. I mean, there's like a little montage at one point where he talks to like Babs and like Montoya for a job, and they basically Montoya's like, oh, they want a clean slate, none of the old force, and Barbara's like, just enjoy retirement, go and play golf or something.
And who recommends he go and work for the mob? It's
the bartender that he's.
That's right.
Yeah,
I could set you up, and I was like, that's one thing Gordon will never do. He's the clean cop, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, no. J. Blushing Detective. What are you giving the book?
Yeah. So, are we breaking them up the stories or just as a whole?
I can break them up. All
right. So the main story I'm going to give an 8.5. The backup I'm going to give a 7, and so I'll give the whole thing an 8.
Yeah. I think the main story for me, I'll just go straight 8. I think the big monster that he fights in that big fight scene is fine and it's fun, but it's a little bit generic. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite have the tone and the atmosphere that some of the other scenes in the book do. So I think it maybe drags it down a little bit into just sort of more normal territory. And then the backup, I'll probably go 7.5. I think the art especially gives it this kind of Danny's art's got this good sort of like obscure but grimy vibe to Gotham that I kind of dig. So
yeah, it felt in line with that Arkham book that we were reading, Dan Waters one. So yeah, it felt like they were in the same neck of the woods, which was nice.